I have an Air Max Pond series Aerator. It's a PS20. It actually has two outputs that go to two different parts of my pond. And you're supposed to replace the air filter in it every year. And then there's like a foam filter. So let me show you. This air filter right here, you're supposed to replace this every year inside here. And then this foam filter right here, you should be at least cleaning or replacing if it gets worn out. And then also inside of it, there's two pistons that move up and down, and they wear out the ring, I guess the rings if you're thinking of like an engine. But there's like some foam or I don't know, some kind of material rings that compress the air and pump the air out. So you're supposed to replace those two. And so the kit's around 100, 125 bucks. I'll show you how to do it here. It's not that hard. It's just, you know, you got to order the parts. It takes you an hour or so to do. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. But here's the unit. And yeah, inside here is going to be your pistons and stuff you got to rebuild. So let's take a look at how to do all that stuff. Also, on this particular aerator, my capacitor had gone bad, so the aerator wouldn't start anymore. My capacitor had gone bad and the aerator wouldn't start anymore. So, you know, you turn it on, it just wouldn't do anything. And actually, I called Air Max and they were able to tell me, I was able to pop off this cover right here, these little plastic pieces. And I was able to actually take a little screwdriver and just kick it, you know, turn it on and kick it with the screwdriver and it would start and it would run fine. So they said, yeah, that's a good way to check that it's just your starting capacitor had gone bad. So I did that. It ran like that, no problem. But you know, anytime it would shut off, I would have to go out and do that. And I didn't want to burn it up. So I did replace the capacitor. So I'll show you how to do that too. It's very easy. You just unplug the old one, put the new one in. But anyways, we'll go ahead and go do all that. I'll replace the air filters and I'll show you how to clean this thing up for the season. Here's what I use to do the job. You need a Torx 20 and a Torx 25. I have little 1/4" drive Torx bits and they're pretty convenient. And then you're gonna need an Allen head, a 4mm Allen head. And then you're gonna need a torque wrench so you can torque the bolts to the right setting. And then because I needed to torque these little Torx things that are only 1/4" drive, I have a 3/8 to 1/4" drive converter so that I can put that on my torque wrench. And you need to do about 50 inch-pounds, so torque wrench around that size. And then you're also going to need a 1/4" drive socket, and then I used a little extension, just kind of helped out. And then I needed a screwdriver to get the capacitor off. So that's what you need to do the job. All right, I didn't record my voice while I was actually working on this, so I'll just do a quick voiceover here for the rest of the video. But here I'm just unpacking the new stuff that you got, and it does come with a little instruction manual there if you need some help on the process. But the first thing I do is I make sure I clean up the unit really good with a shop vac. I'm using here and a little toothbrush. I'm just using the toothbrush to kind of agitate the dirt and make sure it, you know, gets sucked into the vacuum. And then you just want to vacuum everything up and clean the unit up before you get working on it. You can see it looks a lot better here than it did when I started. So yeah, nothing special here, just clean the thing up before you start working on it. Now we're going to actually start taking the unit apart. So you grab your Torx. I forget if it's the Torx 25 or 10, but you want to take off the air manifold there. That air manifold just splits the air to the two, you know, diverters in your pond. And then here you want to loosen up the screws to the actual head. And I think there's 4 on each side, so you just want to take those out. And then it will allow you to break open this head here in a second. And you'll see me do that in just a second here. So yeah, you just want to lift this up. There's those little orange gaskets, or I guess O-rings, or I don't know, they're not really an O, but the rubber rings, they keep the seal there, and so those are you're going to replace. But this capacitor, the starting capacitor here, is actually hooked to the side of the cylinder, so you've got to remove that and take it off so that you can switch the bracket over to the new cylinder when you get it. So we're just going to go ahead and do that, and you know, you just kind of work that thing out of there, and then it's available to take this thing off. And so now that the cylinder's off, you can see the pistons there and the little sleeves that they go in. And then there's 2 little screws on top that let you remove those pistons, and that's what you're gonna, you know, you're gonna put the new ones on. So you want to take those 2 screws out, and I'll do that on both sides here. I forget, that's the other Torx size. I think that's the Torx 10. And yeah, so now you're ready to start putting the new piston pistons on here. So really there's just the piston part you save, but you put this new cup on. It's like the equivalent of rings in an engine, but you just put that new black seal on, and then you want to slide it down into the cylinder like that, so that it's, you know, got a nice new seal to the cylinder, and it's going to be able to get good air pressure and keep pumping air into your pond. So you want to put those cylinders, you know, back on there. And this is kind of a learning process, but you kind of want to get it, you know, so that it's seated down onto the cylinder, and then you want to put those screws in, and then you see me here kind of pushing the piston in down on the cylinder, and the other side's kind of moving a little. So it just takes a minute to figure out exactly what you want to do. But this isn't like, you know, rebuilding an engine where these rings are so tight that you do like a ring compressor to put them in or something like that. It's not that difficult. You just slide them in and put these screws on. So if you just work at it, you'll get them in there, and then you know, tighten down those screws. And now you can see both the cylinders have been replaced, and this is really the main replacement part of this project. Okay, the other thing that you have, you can't see it in the picture yet, but you should have gotten a new head, I guess it would be. I don't know if I'm naming these parts exactly correct, but a new head. There it is, kind of in the bottom corner. You see me start working on it. I'll move the camera here in a second, and you'll be able to see it. But yeah, there you go. So that's the new head, and you've got to attach that bracket to the side of it so that you can put that capacitor back on. So I'm just putting the new bracket, or putting the bracket on this new head. You know, so that you have somewhere to put that bracket, and just tighten that thing down, and then it'll be ready to go. And then the next thing that you'll do is those little orange rings, or orange, the little orange rings that'll sit on those cylinder sleeves or whatever, you want to get those into the head like that. And I just used a little screwdriver and just pushed them down a teeny bit, because you got to flip that thing over, and you don't want those to fall out. So now I'm just seating it on top of those little sleeves. And then now you want to put your orange, I don't know what those are called, gaskets, I guess, the little rubber gaskets on. And those are all brand new too, so make sure you're using the new ones. And then here you're just putting the head cover, I guess you would call it, on. And it just takes those 4 screws. And I forget the torque setting on these, but it's somewhere around 50 inch-pounds, I think. That little instruction manual that came with your unit should have the torque settings on here. So just make sure you check that. And then, yeah, I'm putting each of those screws in. And just like if you were doing an engine, you don't want to tighten one all the way down, you know, and then the other one all the way down. You want to kind of do a cross pattern, or sort of like lug nuts. Do one, get it close, and then go to the other corner, and then go to the other corner, and just kind of work back and forth until you've got everything tightened down. And most of the stuff's aluminum, so be careful. Make sure you follow the torque settings. You don't want to strip anything out. But it's not super difficult. Just work the screws around, and you'll get everything set up. And then here, there's those 2 metal sleeves, that kind of spacers, I guess you would call them, before you put the air manifold on, I would call that. So just be careful, make sure you put those little sleeves in, and then here I'm just tightening it down. I don't remember torque setting on that either, but it's probably in the instruction manual. All right, the last thing is this starting capacitor, and I'm just lining up the old one so that I know which is the plus and minus terminal, and then I'm just putting them on the new one, the new thing, and then putting the rubber cover on, and then slide it into that bracket and tighten that screw down. And, you know, that's super easy to change, and it's already done. And the last thing is this air filter. So I'm pulling the cover off, and I just take a little toothbrush and paper towel and just kind of brush out the dirt and wipe it out, just so it's nice and clean when you put the new filter in. And then you put the new filter in, and you twist it on, which I'll do in a second here. And it is a little tight because of the rubber. So I'm having trouble getting it to twist on. So I just use a tiny bit of like silicone lubricant, and then it slides on real easy. And that is going to be it. That is a full maintenance job on a PS20.